original series, Baby Reindeer.
It's Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
Everybody is talking about Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
all in Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
54 million views.
One of the biggest things I've ever been involved in.
Baby Reindeer taps into the deep curiosity we have with the human mind. The story of Martha and Donny leaves us completely bewildered, stunned and shocked, searching for answers that the series tantalizingly withholds episode after episode. But mostly it had me wondering, what are the neurological mechanisms that are driving this? What changes actually have to happen in the brain to drive this kind of extreme obsessive behavior? Warning, spoilers alert. This is a true story. At the forefront of Martha's behavior is her complete inability to regulate and control her emotions, mostly in social situations, often acting impulsively and showing little to no regard for how others might judge her in public. She often screams, shouts and laughs uncomfortably loud, all social functions that a properly regulated prefrontal cortex would usually keep under wraps. It's responsible for executive function, like controlling your decision making, impulse control, and social and emotional behaviors. In stalkers like Martha, the prefrontal cortex is essentially asleep at the wheel. Research indicates that individuals who display obsessive and compulsive behaviors like stalking often have radically reduced grey matter density. An overall decrease in neuronal circuitry means less top-down control over impulsivity, decisions, and emotion regulation. Stalkers experience their addictions for their targets in pretty much the same way as any other addiction, like nicotine or alcohol. Even the slightest fault of their target sends a surge of unearned dopamine to the prefrontal cortex. This encourages obsessive and stalking-like behaviors. On a synaptic level, what's happening is a physical shape change in the dopamine neurons and their connections to other dopamine neurons. They connect more tightly, communicate more efficiently, and the circuits become further consolidated. These neuroplastic changes make the behavior increasingly automatic and resistant to change. There's a very sad and difficult to watch scene in the series where Martha basically just sits outside of a bus stop for days on end, seemingly with absolutely no ability to leave. Now this is dramatized, of course, but it does illustrate how Martha's disease starts to consume her behavior completely. She seems to have no agency and turns into an almost zombie-like vegetative state. It's like she's being taken over by a mind virus with absolutely no agency or free will. Donny starts to even recognize this, and in an emotionally confusing scene actually helps out his stalker. He's clearly starting to realize that even with everything she's done, she is clearly very mentally ill, and he starts to feel very sorry for her. Further disrupting regular functioning in the prefrontal cortex is an imbalance in the essential neurotransmitters dopamine and serotonin. The source of this dopamine is the nucleus accumbens, a lesser known but critically important region in our reward pathways. Its primary function is to integrate information from other brain regions and drive goal-directed behavior. It effectively does a value appraisal on different stimuli and helps to reinforce positive actions like going to the gym or eating well by shooting dopamine up into the prefrontal cortex. In Martha's case, her nucleus accumbens is specifically hypersensitive to stalking-like activities. This causes an overwhelming surge of dopamine at even the slightest thought of Donny. This is again evident in her compulsive behavior.
41,071 emails, 350 hours of voicemail, 744 tweets, 46 Facebook messages, 4 fake Facebook accounts, 106 pages of letters, and 1 cup of tea.
This is also where another important function of dopamine kicks in, called habituation. On the first email, Martha must have received an exhilarating rush of pleasure, utter euphoria. But on the second time, it required 5 times as many emails. On the second time, 15, 25, and 50. You can see how this snowballs from there. This is really where behavior starts to spiral out of control and become very dangerous. She's chasing that rush that she felt on the first email, but she's unable to get it without continuously escalating the dose. There's a lot here that we don't fully understand, like why these dopamine circuits are misfiring so radically. These are evolutionarily conserved circuits for survival. It seems like in at least some cases, this is due to childhood trauma or early emotional neglect, hard-coded by the amygdala. This region is known commonly for its role in emotional processing and aggression, but it's more appropriate to think of the amygdala like a threat detector. constantly receiving signals from other brain regions about external stimuli and figuring out if they pose a threat. Once a threat is detected, it's the amygdala that triggers the fight or flight response that ends in a surge of cortisol and adrenaline being pumped into the body, priming it for movement. A hyperactive pathological amygdala like the one seen in Stalkers is one where its threat detection is off the charts. It's labeling every stimuli coming at it as very threatening. This places the subject in a heightened state of emotion. In one scene, Martha marches into the bar and sees Donny with his current girlfriend. She is completely unable to contain her emotions and becomes aggressive incredibly quickly, until she just cannot contain her compulsion anymore and she physically assaults the woman. The amygdala's partner in crime is the hippocampus in emotional memory processing. There's a very important moment in the show where Donny makes a joke about hanging Martha's curtains. It has a ton of sexual innuendo and context, but Martha latches onto that moment and holds onto it for the rest of the show. It's interpreted and remembered by Martha as Donny reciprocating all of her sexual advances. She brings it up multiple times throughout the series as justification for her extreme behavior. She truly believes that Donny feels the same way because he said this one simple joke. This is the pathological hippocampus plus amygdala attaching emotional salience to this memory that doesn't really exist. It's a distorted view on reality. But it was anything but insignificant to Martha. The show's name is Baby Reindeer. This is left as an unanswered mystery the entire way through the show until the very last scene. Donny listens to a voicemail from Martha where she talks about a childhood baby reindeer. She talked about the struggles and difficulty she had with her parents' divorce, and this reindeer was her one escape. She physically compares Donny and the reindeer, and then, in a quite heart-throbbing moment, releases all of her emotion that she feels for him. I think everyone at this point was incapable of not empathizing with Martha. Here we can start to really piece together the childhood origin of her obsession with Donny. Children are vulnerable to trauma because they are so sensitive and prone to be wired by damaging emotional memories. If Martha's childhood was dominated by her parents fighting and her one singular escape was this toy baby reindeer, you start to gain some context for her emotional attachment to Donny, to which she has clearly displaced that emotion onto. It is the pathological amygdala which is the root of this attachment. The show is incredible because there actually isn't as clear a victim as you think there might be from the outset. It is not black or white. You have two characters struggling with very different types of mental illness caused by past traumas and manifesting themselves in completely different ways. It reveals the full spectrum of the human condition. By exploring the dark corridors of the brain, we gain an appreciation for the impact of trauma and how important early intervention is in mental health, and most importantly, mental illness in all of its different shapes and sizes. And maybe we can all just have a little bit more empathy for it. If you like this video and want me to do more neuroscience breakdowns of top Netflix shows, then subscribe and leave a comment down below on what show you'd like me to do next. Thank you so much for watching.